The ongoing strain in Harry's ties with his relatives remains profoundly challenging and deeply strained. William and Charles have arrived at a point where they refuse to hold any private conversations with Harry, driven by serious concerns that anything shared in those confidential discussions could later appear in a published book or feature in a documentary. Here we are in January 2026, with cameras trained on every move and the entire world paying close attention. Catherine and William enter the hospital in West London, and right away, the atmosphere shifts noticeably. Their posture, the glances directed their way, the overall vibe filling the space, it all feels distinct. This goes beyond a standard royal outing. This moment shows the future King and Queen of England arriving with the unmistakable air of people who are already in possession of the crown. People with close connections to the palace have started quietly sharing details that are sending royal observers into a frenzy. That visit to Charing Cross Hospital stood out as the initial occasion when William and Catherine presented themselves completely in the manner of their eventual positions as sovereign and consort. They were no longer rehearsing or simulating the roles. Instead, they carried themselves with the genuine command and gravitas that belonged to a reigning king and queen. Those on the inside at the palace report that the pace of readiness has picked up significantly. According to accounts, King Charles personally granted them additional responsibilities that no prince or princess of Wales has possessed for more than 100 years. These responsibilities basically allow them to perform as joint sovereigns in nearly every practical sense, even if the official title hasn't changed yet. The specific timing of all this leaves many people questioning what might truly be taking place within the palace's private quarters. Could Charles be bracing himself for a particular development? Might his condition be more serious than the official statements suggest? Handing over such substantial influence to your successor while you remain active and on duty yourself deviates sharply from established royal custom. What we're witnessing looks very much like active preparations for the transfer of power unfolding right before our eyes. Get ready, because the developments playing out at this moment have the potential to transform the British monarchy more rapidly than most observers anticipated. King Charles has now spoken publicly for the first time about what he described as his alarming encounter with cancer. The sovereign received a diagnosis of an unidentified type of the illness back in February of the previous year. He is sharing his initial reflections on that struggle while he and Queen Camilla welcome members of the cancer support community to a special gathering held at Buckingham Palace. Allow me to go into the specifics of that hospital visit, since those finer points carry real significance. On January 9th, 2026, William and Catherine arrived at Charing Cross Hospital without any prior announcement whatsoever. The employees received no heads-up. None of the patients had been informed in advance. This was far from a meticulously orchestrated media opportunity, complete with prior scheduling and thorough security preparations. They simply entered the building as though it belonged to them. What truly stood out to observers was the manner in which William addressed the personnel, the self-assurance he displayed, the sense of command in his voice. He discussed Catherine's own path through cancer treatment, drew on his background with the air ambulance service, and formed connections with medical professionals in a way that came across less as a prince preparing for the future and more as a current ruler genuinely looking after the welfare of those who serve the nation. Catherine formed a meaningful connection with one volunteer who supports individuals receiving chemotherapy. She devoted genuine time to hearing accounts of patients enduring lengthy sessions while undergoing their treatments. Here was a woman who had personally navigated her own cancer experience just 12 months earlier. Today she returns to these settings, drawing directly from that ordeal to offer understanding and solidarity to others who find themselves in the midst of it. From what Tom Sykes appears to suggest, the decision to be so open early on about King Charles's cancer diagnosis carried certain drawbacks. He goes on to describe exactly how that openness came about. Individuals present during the event noted that the atmosphere felt markedly different compared to previous royal engagements they had witnessed. According to one employee who later spoke to acquaintances, William and Catherine gave the impression of already fulfilling the roles of king and queen. They were not rehearsing or gearing up for it. They were living those roles in the moment. The pair took time to chat with NHS staff members during their break for tea. They inquired about the challenges the workers encounter specifically in the winter months, explored ways in which charitable organizations ease some of the strain on the healthcare system, and every exchange seemed to hold substantial importance. Each one conveyed real authority, the sort that cannot be manufactured or imitated. Information circulating through palace networks indicates that Charles deliberately chose this particular visit for them. He wanted them visible to the nation, demonstrating clearly what lies ahead. At the age of 77, having spent the past year receiving treatment for cancer, Charles recognizes that time moves forward relentlessly. He is taking every possible step to guarantee that William and Catherine stand fully prepared. The king recently spent time in the hospital due to a medical intervention addressing benign enlargement of the prostate, a condition commonly referred to as benign prostatic hyperplasia or BPH. During additional examinations, doctors discovered a form of cancer that he continues to receive treatment for, although it is distinct from prostate cancer, which remains the most frequently occurring cancer among men. Now let's turn to the developments occurring away from public view, because this is the area that becomes particularly compelling. Come spring 2026, only a short while ahead, William and Catherine will formally assume the authority to issue royal warrants. Are you familiar with the implications? It means they gain the official ability to grant the royal seal of approval to selected companies and products. This carries far more weight than mere symbolic tradition. In the United Kingdom, royal warrants represent a genuinely significant commercial privilege. Receiving that palace endorsement instantly builds trust and prestige for any brand. It frequently leads to dramatic increases in demand and revenue. The association links the product directly to centuries of royal tradition. Businesses invest considerable sums in pursuit of such acknowledgement. Here is the crucial element that stands out. By long-standing custom, only the sitting monarch together with their spouse possess the right to bestow these warrants. At present, that authority rests solely with Charles and Camilla. No one beyond them holds it. Those next in line for the throne do not receive this privilege during the reigning sovereign's lifetime. That has never been the established practice. He continues to preside over meetings of the Privy Council and to review the daily red boxes containing official documents, yet he will no longer appear frequently in public settings. A substantial portion of what it means to serve as monarch involves visibility. As the late Queen often observed, one must be seen in order to be fully accepted and believed. Yet in this instance the tradition has been set aside, since Charles chose to depart from convention by bestowing upon William and Catherine responsibilities that would ordinarily remain withheld until later. These responsibilities effectively position them as co-sovereigns within commercial and civic domains. One cannot help but wonder about the underlying reasons. Accounts from those familiar with the circumstances explain that Charles aims to create a seamless handover by allowing the public to grow accustomed to seeing William and Catherine perform at the level of reigning monarchs well before any formal change occurs. It represents a thoughtful approach, though it also hints strongly that Charles anticipates the moment of succession arriving earlier than many have assumed. Catherine now stands as the initial Princess of Wales to hold the authority to confer royal warrants in more than a century, 116 years to be precise. The previous woman to exercise that privilege was Queen Mary in 1910, shortly before her husband ascended as King George V. Do you notice the recurring theme? A woman acquires this particular influence, and soon afterwards she becomes queen. The same historical sequence appears to be unfolding once more right here in the present day. What frustrates me most about the media's handling of that hospital appearance is how much emphasis fell on the lighter, more charming interactions, the handshakes, the friendly expressions. So few outlets bothered to examine the substance of William's actual remarks. Yet those statements reveal precisely where his mindset resides. William has clearly felt the sting of repeated criticism directed at him by his brother and sister-in-law, and on this occasion, he decided he would respond directly. His frustration becomes understandable when you consider how much negative commentary has come his way, particularly following that well-known interview with Oprah, and choosing silence would have been one option, yet he chose otherwise. William spoke about the meaningful connection that forms between a patient and the person caring for them, describing it as deeply moving and stressing the importance of recognizing and valuing the dedicated efforts carried out within the National Health Service. Those words carry the tone of genuine sovereignty. They do not sound like polite observations from someone merely offering encouragement. They come from a person who speaks as though he already bears responsibility for the welfare of these individuals. He drew links between his own past involvement with the air ambulance service and Catherine's recent experience with serious illness, explaining how those personal encounters gave added purpose to their presence at the hospital. In doing so, he constructed a broader story centered on mutual hardship and common human experience. That approach defines what effective monarchs provide. They forge bonds with their subjects by sharing in life's difficulties. Catherine supported his message seamlessly. She told the hospital team that remarkable efforts are underway and that those efforts genuinely improve the quality of life for countless patients. Her words were straightforward, yet she delivered them with the quiet assurance of someone fully aware that her voice holds the authority of the crown itself. The hospital staff responded warmly and visibly appreciated the exchange. You could observe it in their reactions, in the way their eyes met William and Catherine, not as individuals who might one day hold the throne, but as the king and queen already present among them. That gradual change in how people perceive them represents exactly what the palace intends to achieve. It forms the central purpose behind these carefully chosen public moments. I, William, Prince of Wales, pledge my loyalty to you, and faith and truth I will bear unto you as your liege man of life and limb. So help me God. Allow me to clarify the broader picture here, because none of these steps occur by chance. The palace approaches every decision with precision. Each public engagement receives careful design to deliver the strongest possible effect. The year 2025 proved exceptionally difficult for the entire royal household. Charles faced his cancer diagnosis. Catherine confronted her own battle with the disease, and questions about the line of succession loomed over every development. Throughout it all, the public openly wondered whether the institution could withstand yet another change at the top, and whether William and Catherine truly stood prepared to lead. In response, the palace chose to speed up the process of preparation. They extended genuine authority to William and Catherine. They positioned them in full view of the nation, allowing them to carry out duties at the level of reigning sovereigns. They offer the country a clear preview of what the monarchy's next chapter will look like. Is it possible to accomplish this gradual shift while Charles remains actively engaged and capable? Doing so would make the eventual transition feel continuous and reassuring rather than abrupt and unsettling. Royal commentator Hilary Ford shared with various outlets that William and Catherine have undertaken an intensified program to prepare for assuming leadership responsibilities. That term, intensified, holds real weight. It signals a deliberate move to advance the schedule beyond the usual rhythm. Something has clearly altered the expected time frame. People with direct insight suggest that Charles seeks to finalize the succession framework before any further deterioration in his condition might occur. His goal is to integrate William and Catherine so thoroughly into the demands of the role that the change, when it arrives, will seem entirely organic, as though they have already carried out the responsibilities for an extended period, and the public has come to accept and embrace that reality. Yes, he certainly established the foundation for everything we're seeing now, and you sense that things will feel markedly different once he ultimately ascends to the throne. Interestingly enough, I noticed considerable strength in the way he referred to it on several occasions. When he joined you for a casual conversation over a pint in the pub and spoke about embracing necessary adjustments, recent surveys indicate that William and Catherine rank as the most favored members of the royal family. The public clearly desires to see them take their place at the head of the institution. They bring youth, approachability, and a contemporary outlook. Catherine emerged from her cancer treatment with renewed resilience. William consistently raises awareness around mental well-being and environmental concerns. Together, they represent the kind of monarchy that resonates with today's generation. As a result, the palace delivers precisely what the people appear to desire. They allow William and Catherine to occupy the public stage with increasing frequency, conducting themselves in ways that mirror a reigning king and queen, even without the formal designation. Observing how the public responds confirms that this deliberate approach yields positive results. One aspect frequently overlooked concerns the deeper impact of Catherine's experience with cancer. The illness did far more than threaten her physical health. It reshaped the way ordinary people view her character, influenced William's understanding of their shared future responsibilities, and altered the trajectory of the entire succession process. Catherine endured rounds of chemotherapy, stepped away from official duties for several months, and returned to public life in remission during January 2025. That milestone lies only about 12 months in the past, yet today she actively participates in hospital engagements, attends sporting events such as rugby receptions, and maintains a busy schedule of commitments. Many now share my skepticism regarding the accuracy of statements made by Meghan Markle concerning the royal household. At the time those claims surfaced, however, they generated such intense controversy that my employer, rather than standing up for my right to express an opinion, insisted that I issue an apology or face consequences. The network presented it as a choice: either retract what I had said or stay off the air. The key difference now lies in how she approaches her public role. Those familiar with her schedule describe her choices as far more deliberate. She concentrates on work that holds genuine significance, deliberately building in time for family life, rather than maintaining the relentless schedule of earlier years when she appeared at countless events performing routine royal obligations. Today, each commitment carries clear intent and deeper purpose. Her personal journey through cancer has endowed her with a level of authenticity that no other member of the royal family can claim. She understands from direct experience what it feels like to spend extended periods in hospital settings, to undergo demanding treatments, and to confront uncertainty about the future. When she now speaks with individuals facing cancer, the exchange transcends polite sympathy offered by someone distant and privileged. It becomes a conversation between someone who has walked that same difficult path and others currently traveling it. That level of sincerity represents tremendous value for the monarchy, especially given the frequent accusation that royals remain disconnected from everyday realities and fail to grasp ordinary struggles. Through her own diagnosis and recovery, Catherine demonstrated that she remains vulnerable to the same health challenges that affect millions of others, and she navigated that ordeal while preserving composure, strength, and elegance. Those qualities mark her unmistakably as someone suited for queenship. William stood by as his wife battled cancer at the same moment his father confronted his own diagnosis. That simultaneous burden weighs heavily on any person. It reshapes priorities and deepens resolve. Those close to William report that the experience strengthened his commitment to leveraging his position for positive impact. It brought home the reality that time passes quickly, urging action in the present rather than postponing meaningful efforts until he formally assumes the throne. Their position weakened further because Meghan Markle sent a direct letter to the female chief executive at ITV, my superior at the highest level, calling for my dismissal. The demand arrived suddenly and without warning. I received the ultimatum: either offer an apology or forfeit any future appearances. When I asked what exactly required apology, since I stood by my statement, they acknowledged my sincerity yet pressed me to say something anyway to smooth things over. I refused, explaining that I could not retract a view I genuinely held. I simply did not find her account credible. That sequence of events helps explain why you now observe William assuming greater responsibility, speaking with increased conviction, and stepping forward more decisively. He no longer waits for some distant future moment. He conducts himself as the sovereign he will soon become. Let me outline clearly why the matter of royal warrants deserves such attention, since many overlook its true importance. This goes well beyond giving approval to luxury labels. It involves real economic influence, the ability to guide commercial trends across Britain, and the power to determine which enterprises receive prestigious royal recognition and which do not. Should Catherine grant a royal warrant to a clothing company, that company's visibility and sales often surge dramatically. The so-called Kate effect already stands as one of the most potent drivers of consumer behavior in British fashion. Items she chooses tend to disappear from shelves almost immediately. Now picture that same influence reinforced by an official royal endorsement. The result becomes a force capable of shifting markets. The scope extends far beyond apparel. Royal warrants encompass categories including food and beverages, technological innovations, industrial production, and more. William and Catherine will possess the capacity to influence which goods earn public confidence, which enterprises flourish, and which sectors benefit from royal association. According to reliable accounts, they intend to apply this authority thoughtfully, prioritizing excellence in British-made goods, environmentally responsible practices, and organizations that contribute positively to society, rather than awarding recognition based solely on financial incentives or superficial prestige. Catherine already demonstrated the effectiveness of this mindset during her visit to Heritage Mills in September 2025. That engagement highlighted traditional British textile expertise, attracted widespread press attention, and sparked renewed interest in domestic production. Envision achieving similar outcomes with the added weight of an official royal warrant behind the effort. The clever element lies in cultivating this reputation during their current phase as prince and princess. By doing so, they build lasting trust and authority ahead of any formal ascension. When the moment of succession eventually arrives, the public will already regard their decisions as sound and view them as natural leaders deserving of support. Royal commentator Giovanna shared an observation with the Times that particularly struck me. She described Catherine as a future queen who truly pays attention, who engages deeply, who remains attuned to the realities around her, rather than serving merely as a symbolic figure carrying out prescribed duties. That emphasis on attentive listening holds special relevance because it addresses a core requirement for a monarchy suited to contemporary times. The public no longer accepts aloof figures residing in grand residences, separated from daily life. People seek genuine engagement. They want a sense that their voices matter. Catherine has repeatedly shown she possesses exactly that ability. Her interactions, particularly with children and families, convey sincere curiosity about their experiences and concerns. Giovanna further noted that both William and Catherine enter their anticipated roles with complete awareness and clarity. They recognize the adjustments the institution requires. They appreciate that the monarchy must adapt and modernize if it hopes to endure. They stand prepared to guide that necessary transformation. Another perspective came from royal biographer Robert Jobson, who mentioned that Catherine's schedule for 2026 continues to fill steadily, yet she refuses to revert to the exhausting rhythm of previous years. Her encounter with cancer taught her a vital lesson. Family and personal health must take precedence. All other commitments arrange themselves around that foundation. Such candor feels uncommon when discussing members of the royal family. Rarely do we hear acknowledgement that the traditional demands of royal life nearly overwhelmed her, or that safeguarding her own well-being becomes essential to performing the role effectively. That outlook reflects distinctly modern thinking for a queen. The public responds warmly to it. They appreciate seeing Catherine speak honestly about her boundaries, about the necessity of balance, and about placing her children ahead of other obligations. Those qualities make her approachable and authentic. They foster a powerful connection with her as the future queen. Now consider an element that receives surprisingly little attention: young Prince George. At 12 years old, and approaching his 13th birthday this coming summer, he finds himself prepared for eventual kingship at a pace unmatched by any recent heir to the throne. George joined his parents at the VE Day commemorative tea gathering and displayed poise and compassion well beyond what one expects from someone his age. Specialists observing his development note that he clearly absorbs the essential lessons of royal conduct from William and Catherine as they ready him for the responsibilities that await him one day. A palpable sense of sorrow surrounds the situation when thinking of Charles. There exists something inherently poignant in the reality that this individual waited throughout his entire life, with patience and dignity, to assume the position of sovereign over this nation. At no point did he actively campaign for the role. Dismiss any exaggerated portrayals suggesting otherwise, such as those found in certain fictionalized television series like The Crown. He never sought to hasten the process. What adds intrigue here is the palace's decision to feature George more prominently in public settings, allowing audiences to witness his gradual maturation into royal duties. In doing so, they reinforce continuity across 3 successive generations: Charles today, followed by William and Catherine, and eventually George in the future. That structure secures the monarchy's stability well into the coming decades. Reliable sources indicate that George will accompany his family to the World Cup held in the United States during the summer of 2026. Such a prominent international journey and major public event represents another meaningful stage in his ongoing preparation, while simultaneously providing William and Catherine yet another opportunity to present themselves on the global stage in a manner that closely resembles reigning sovereigns. So what explains the concentration of these developments during January 2026? Why the noticeable increase in tempo? Why confer these additional authorities now? Why arrange appearances that project full monarch-level presence? She would send messages to me from locations such as Rwanda and I genuinely believed a solid friendship might develop between us. Later, she mentioned plans to travel to London to attend the tennis alongside her friend Serena Williams, someone I also know quite well. She asked whether I might like to join her for a drink. I suggested she visit my neighborhood pub, explaining that as an Irish person I naturally favor my local spot. I wondered whether she would actually show up at my pub in Ken. When you piece together these various threads, a coherent explanation emerges. Charles has reached the age of 77. He faced a cancer diagnosis during 2025. Although he maintains an active schedule, completing 535 official engagements over the past year, he remains fully aware that advancing age brings limitations. He understands that the moment of transition draws nearer. Through granting William and Catherine these expanded responsibilities at the present time and permitting them to function at this elevated level, Charles works to guarantee that succession proceeds without disruption, regardless of whether it occurs 5 years hence or within the next few months. The groundwork has been laid. Public acceptance has grown. The eventual shift will register as a natural continuation rather than a startling break. Consider also the broader signal this approach sends to audiences around the world. Britain demonstrates that its monarchy does not fade away alongside an aging sovereign. Instead, it showcases capable, energetic, forward-looking figures prepared to assume leadership. William and Catherine embody a contemporary vision of the nation, one that embraces progress, values diverse perspectives, and maintains strong ties with younger demographics. While many commend King Charles for openly disclosing his cancer diagnosis, I want to highlight one important detail. The initial public announcement was never part of the original plan. What occurred first was a diagnosis of a non-cancerous prostate condition. Looking forward from this point, spring 2026 will bring the official conferral of authority to grant royal warrants upon William and Catherine. That milestone marks the concrete transfer of power, the instant when they move beyond heir status and begin acting as co-sovereigns in meaningful ways. The summer season will feature their high-visibility journey to the World Cup in America, placing them before a vast international audience and offering a prime opportunity to illustrate the shape of Britain's monarchy in the years ahead. Rest assured they will conduct themselves in ways that align closely with the duties of king and queen, even absent the formal titles. Across the remainder of the year, anticipate a continuation of these purposeful, confidence-building engagements. Expect additional instances in which William and Catherine exercise authority at the sovereign level. Expect further steps that solidify readiness for a succession that could arrive at any moment. The king, who spent a brief period in hospital last month while continuing his course of treatment, observed that although every fresh diagnosis presents challenges that can feel overwhelming and sometimes deeply alarming, he can personally attest that the journey often highlights the finest qualities of human kindness and compassion. The British public stands prepared to embrace what lies ahead. Recent opinion surveys reveal strong and widespread backing. Citizens express clear preference for seeing William and Catherine ascend to the throne. They welcome the transformation those two represent and appreciate the vitality they contribute. King Charles takes deliberate action to ensure that, when the appropriate moment arrives, the passage of power occurs seamlessly. William and Catherine will not find themselves hurriedly adapting to the demands of sovereignty. They will already have lived those demands, secured broad public approval, and developed the necessary expertise and self-assurance. In truth, that hospital appearance amounted to far more than a kind gesture toward NHS personnel. It served as the future king and queen presenting the nation with a tangible glimpse of the monarchy's next era.